The future of Call of Duty is really not looking good under Microsoft. In my prior videos where I have been talking about the acquisition, I spoke on how I didn't really think much was going to change because corporations will always be corporations, and one massive corporation taking over another massive but much smaller in comparison corporation is not going to suddenly fix all of the issues with Activision Blizzard overnight. And at the end of the day, all these corporations care about is their bottom line and their shareholders and the executives that rake in all of the money from the hard work of everyone underneath them. The other day we received a lineup of all of the future 4 Call of Duty games from Insider Gaming, but this was quickly followed up with the news that Microsoft have laid off over 1,900 of their employees. These include employees at Activision Blizzard, but also some of their other subdivisions. And this is just extremely sad to see, but it is not surprising at all. This happens pretty much every time after a major acquisition. Of course, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard for $70 billion, and they're not going to be able to recoup that money anytime soon, and so they start cutting costs. Of course, this is money that they've invested into Activision Blizzard that's now a part of Microsoft, but this is just absolutely heartbreaking and disheartening. And the thing is, all they do is just run algorithms to determine who gets laid off, and we've seen many different roles of people laid off that are very, very talented. I'm not saying that anyone who has gotten laid off isn't talented, but we've seen many major roles that you would just think would never get laid off, many talented people. How has this affected the Call of Duty studios? Well, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games, Infinity Ward, High Moon Studios, Beanox, literally all of them have been impacted with many layoffs. However, it does seem like Sledgehammer Games have been hit the hardest. According to reports, it seems like almost 30% of Sledgehammer Games have been laid off, which is absolutely insane. And the biggest and most alarming piece of information that has come out is it seems like pretty much the entirety of Sledgehammer Games' QA department has been laid off. This means that the future of Modern Warfare 3 is in major jeopardy, because whilst yes, they do of course develop most of the content in the post-launch seasons ahead of time, they still get finalized very soon up to release, and especially in regards to bug fixes, they are constantly being worked on right up to release. So for them to lay off pretty much the entirety of the QA department, I am very worried for the upcoming content for Modern Warfare 3. We might see a Vanguard situation where, of course, the game was supported very well at launch, but then it was supported terribly post-launch because Sledgehammer Games were then forced to work on Modern Warfare 3, so they had to take a load of resources away from that. And with 30% of their development getting laid off and the QA department dissipating, all of the future updates may be almost non-existent, or the updates that do get released might be absolutely bug-ridden. We saw what recently happened with the Season 1 Reloaded update, that it released with a bunch of bugs, but the developers and QA testers were hard at work to ensure that everything got fixed within around 24 hours. They worked overtime when they didn't need to, only for us, the fans. They are not obligated to do that, but they felt like they messed up with that update and so course corrected. But with the entire QA team getting laid off, this is so worrisome for the future. QA is such an important part of game development, and they often get mistreated by the higher ups at the development studios or the publisher because they're seen as just being lazy, they just play video games all day. This seems to be the unfortunate sentiment that floats around in these studios when they are such an integral part of game development. And what seems to also happen with Call of Duty is many times the QA testers do report so many of the bugs they find, and they get forwarded to the managers and the developers, but then they don't end up changing anything or fixing them, and so they end up pushing out updates with major crucial bugs that were identified by QA but just were never targeted and fixed. And what is so heart-wrenching about all of this situation is the fact that, of course, Microsoft were promising a bright future of Activision now under the company, and they were saying that they were a big part of one big family, and they were spreading all of this propaganda, and as it turns out, they just don't actually care about any of the employees. And I've seen a lot of really awful, rude people on Twitter saying that these people deserve to have been laid off, that they wouldn't just be laying off people for no reason, and that they must just not be performing well. But as I've just previously stated, that doesn't seem to be the case. Most likely, they just run algorithms, and algorithms are not 100% accurate. There is no one-to-one human interaction with these developers. There's no opportunity for them to be better and get feedback to improve. They are just laid off by an algorithm. And the thing is, the news to the public that came out that these layoffs were incoming was published before the developers themselves even knew they were being laid off, which meant that they would have seen this story first from news publications and not from their employer themselves. So whilst they were waiting to hear the news, they were all just anxiously awaiting whether they would get laid off or not. And I'm sure that's such a scary position to be in, regardless of whether you get laid off or not. Knowing that you have absolutely no security is such a scary thing, and I don't exactly know what Microsoft expects for the future of Call of Duty. Why on earth would anyone in the future want to work in the games industry when they know that their job is on the line at any point in time? Already this year, Microsoft have laid off thousands and thousands and thousands of people. This isn't the first layoff, and there's probably many more to come, and we're literally only in January now. And I also want to stress that many people regard Phil Spencer as being some sort of god. I don't know why. He's just like Bobby Kotick. All of these higher-ups are exactly the same. He was cordial with Bobby Kotick this entire time, during this entire process, and I know sometimes you have to work with bad people for an end goal, but they were just way too friendly with one another in interviews. You just knew something dodgy was up there, and of course Bobby Kotick has received $100 million, bonus, or however amount it was, and he has now left Activision Blizzard. He's received that massive bonus. All of that money could have gone to keep these developers employed, because here's the thing, Microsoft is now a multi-trillion-dollar company, a $3 trillion company. They have just overtaken Apple to be the most valuable company in the world, whilst they are still laying off employees. Also, their 2023 profits increased. They were higher than 2022, but despite this, they're still laying off people just because of the fact that they've done this big acquisition, so now need to cut costs. And the thing is, it's not just about the fact that they're getting rid of people that they think are not performing well enough. Like I said before, they're just trying to cut corners, because with regards to them cutting off all of the QA testers, these QA testers are valuable, and it seems like they're probably going to go the Halo route. Of course, Microsoft have mishandled the Halo IP massively, but what they've been doing is they got rid of all of the QA testers and then just got in contractors. But of course, after contractors are working after a certain amount of time, they then have to, by law, become full-time employees. But Microsoft would just cut their contracts as soon as that was coming up and then hire new people, because it's cheaper to do it this way. But of course, that's not a way to build a healthy environment, and it's not a way to have proper QA testers. And it seems like this is the route they're going with Call of Duty and the other Activision Blizzard IPs. And this means that the developers don't have security, and also they're less likely to do as good of a job as contractors because they have no value to the company. Of course, these companies for some weird reason expect massive loyalty from their employees, but why should they give loyalty when they don't give any loyalty to them? Anyone, literally anyone, can get cut off in a mere second, regardless of how much work you've done, regardless of how long you've been working for the company, regardless of if you've been performing or underperforming. It doesn't matter. They can lay you off at any second. We've seen big names at Trek getting laid off, for example, who just make no sense, who have been doing so many good things. The Raven Software community manager has gotten laid off, for example, and he has been one of the most receptive people in the community. He has been listening to the fans. He has been such a good community manager, engaging that bridge between the developers and the fans. He's been doing a phenomenal job, yet he just gets laid off because most likely there's just higher-ups at Microsoft that are going through the list and they're like, oh, we don't need a community manager, get rid of them. In their eyes, maybe they feel like they just need one big main Call of Duty manager that manages everything, instead of someone like him who was so interconnected with the community and listened to both sides. But according to Microsoft, he's invaluable when he really isn't. So yeah, this whole situation is just so frustrating. But like I said, the future of Call of Duty is in jeopardy. Modern Warfare 3's future updates are in jeopardy. Sledgehammer Games have had 30% of their development studio cut entirely. There's no QA testers, or at least very few of them now. Most likely they're just going to be moving to contractors to save costs. And also, what does this mean for Call of Duty 2024, the next Treyarch game releasing this year? Treyarch have this big game coming out this year, and they've had major cutoffs now, major loss of developers, so that game could be drastically impacted by that. And whilst they have had a long development period to make this game, with the fact that the QA are probably getting cut off, and the fact that they also have to make Call of Duty 2025, is just so alarming. And coming from the Insider Gaming article, so obviously Call of Duty 2024 seems to be a 90s Black Ops game, maybe Black Ops Gulf War. The 2025 game will be another Black Ops game 2 years in a row, but this one's going to be a sequel to Black Ops 2 in the near future in 2030. Most likely Treyarch will be the main studio, but they'll be assisted by Sledgehammer Games as well as Raven Software, because of course Treyarch probably can't carry the brunt of the work for 2 full games 2 years in a row. 2026 will apparently be the next Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 4, Modern Warfare Ghost, whatever it ends up being called. It'll follow on from the events with Makarov, and maybe we'll actually see World War 3 in this game. Hopefully it's not a dud campaign like Modern Warfare 3, and stuff actually starts to happen and it doesn't just feel like filler. Honestly, I don't know who's going to be excited for this game though, after Infinity Ward have really been unreceptive to feedback with Modern Warfare 2. People just don't have them in their good books layoffs right now, and then apparently in 2027, it's crazy, we're already looking that far ahead, is going to be Sledgehammer Games' next game. And this was reported by Insider Gaming a day before these layoffs were announced, and they announced that Sledgehammer Games will be starting to work on this game. Of course, it's way in the future, 4 years of development, but apparently they reported that Sledgehammer Games is now downsizing. They're closing a lot of their office spaces, and apparently a lot of the developers are now moving to working remotely from home. And I think this is a good thing because over COVID, of course, many of the developers started working from home. Some people have disabilities, and it's just overall easier for them to not need to commute. It saves a lot of expenses. They can work from anywhere in the world, theoretically. I think especially for game development, when it can all just be done from a computer, as long as you have a computer, good enough internet, you can do most of the work from home. So I think in that sense it's a good thing, but I guess this story was a precedent for what was about to happen, because I think the reason they were downsizing is because they were about to get a massive chunk of their employee force laid off. And this is just so disgusting. Now, I don't know how this is going to affect that 2027 game. Of course, it's years out now, but this is just really unfortunate because for a timeline of events, Sledgehammer Games were working on a game in 2020 with Raven Software, but there was some sort of falling out or mess in development, so Treyarch had to take over that to then turn it into Black Ops Cold War. They were then forced to work on Vanguard in just a year and a half. They didn't have much time to work on that, and they were under extreme crunch, but Activision lied to them and they said, if you work this extreme crunch, you'll get a chance to make a Call of Duty with a proper development time next time. But then they were not given that opportunity. As soon as Vanguard's development was happening, they then turned the Modern Warfare 2 DLC expansion into a full-on game, Modern Warfare 3, which they were then forced to take over and again make in a very short period of time, around a year and a half. And now they finally seem to be getting a full development cycle with it releasing in 2027. However, it seems like so many of their employees have been cut off. Now, maybe they were able to recoup by 2027, but honestly, who knows? And regardless of whether they're able to recoup or not, who is going to want to work at Sledgehammer Games? If you are an upcoming game developer and you see their job listings, but you've heard the news about all of these layoffs, are you even going to want to bother to apply when you know your job is at risk at any second? It's just disheartening, and this is a trend in the gaming industry across the whole. In fact, not just the gaming industry, the world in general. Clearly, the system must be broken if these layoffs constantly have to happen, regardless of the fact that their profits are up. Their profits are literally up, yet they're still laying people off. The CEOs, the executives are still taking massive multi-million dollar, should I say, bonuses, yet the actual employees who are making the goddamn products, because the higher-ups don't do anything, they just boss people about, are the ones reaping all of the benefits. And like I said, it's not like the people getting laid off have done anything wrong. The QA, for example, haven't done anything wrong. They're only getting laid off because they're cutting costs to get a cheaper alternative, which is paid contractors, which, for example, they might just employ people in other countries where it's cheaper to employ people. They have relaxed minimum wages, less regulations, so many things. Now, in terms of what this 2027 game will be, well, apparently Sledgehammer Games wanted to do some sort of Advanced Warfare spin-off or sequel game instead of Modern Warfare 3. They were concepting that, but then they were forced to work on Modern Warfare 3. So maybe that game will be Advanced Warfare 2 or an Advanced Warfare spin-off in the same universe, and it might be the return to a advanced movement Call of Duty, which we've not seen since 2016 with Infinite Warfare. Now, whilst that game received a lot of hate, we're years on now, the Call of Duty community has moved on, and maybe that could work by the time that 2027 swings around, since the community might have massively changed since then, and it might be a good way to switch things up and keep things fresh, because Call of Duty's felt very stale recently, with every game feeling very similar, so it's good that we're changing eras constantly. So I'd imagine maybe that's what they are going to be working on, but we will have to wait and see. We're so far out from release, it can always be up in the air. So the current schedule this year, a 90s Black Ops game. Next year, we're getting a futuristic and near future Black Ops 2 sequel. The year after that, a Modern Warfare sequel, and then whatever Sledgehammer are working on in 2027, which may be Advanced Warfare 2 or an Advanced Warfare spin-off. But the future of these games is in major jeopardy. Microsoft don't seem to be changing anything with all of these layoffs, and also Microsoft have laid off apparently the entire department that's responsible for physical games. So it seems like Microsoft are now ditching physical games. You won't be able to get discs, you'll only be able to buy them digitally, which is of course more expensive anyways. And of course, if you don't have the physical game, if you can't log into your account anymore, if something happens, if the servers go offline, if they're online only games, you know, there's no way to just play these games anymore. You never really own this game when it's a digital item. It's not the same, and especially for collector's items, you know, you're not going to have that opportunity anymore. And I don't understand how Microsoft thinks that this is an appropriate business model, because no one's going to want to work for them if they have no job security, and they hear how poorly all of the developers have been mistreated, as well as the fact that if they're cutting developers so much, the games are going to result in them being messes, and it's surely going to impact their profits. They have brand new COD games releasing. They also want to tap into the mobile market. Of course, they have Candy Crush now, and Warzone Mobile's set to release globally this year, but they've also cut a load of the developments for the Warzone Mobile studio. So surely all of these are going to end in catastrophes, and it's going to hurt them, just like how they have poorly mistreated the Halo franchise. Anyways, let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.